Welcome to our 5 on 5. We're pleased to be joined in studio by Medford Police Chief Scott Clauson. Chief, thank you so much for taking the time.
You bet. Thank you.
So we're talking today about this new camping law. You guys started handing out 72-hour notices for the new prohibited camping law in Medford on Monday. What happens Thursday when those hours are up?
Well, our approach all along when the ordinance went into effect is to do intensive outreach. And we've been doing that for the last 3 weeks. And starting Monday, we actually stepped it up. So now the process is to post the camp, and we're posting it with a 72-hour notice. Each campsite was documented. We took photos, we talked to individuals, and we documented what services we provided. So over the next 3 days, we're helping to assist folks get connected to services. We had options and access and La Clinica out today, for example. So we picked 7 campsites in one particular area. So we're really focusing those resources for those 7 campsites. So on Thursday, we will have given them plenty of notification. We've asked folks to start taking their personal belongings, and we've notified them that whatever they leave behind, we will be cleaning up.
And what about mental health professionals? I know you have a livability team, and they are familiar with many of the people who live along the Greenway, but will mental health experts be joining them?
Yeah, that's a very common practice. We connect weekly with the Jackson County Mobile Crisis. So they come down and they help us along the Greenway. We're fortunate to have a couple of ATV side-by-sides. So they're 4-person units. We can easily add addictions recovery services. Mental health is a weekly thing. So we bring those folks down today. And for example, today in addition to mental health, we had folks actually signing people up for medical appointments and getting them back on the Oregon Health Plan. We also had access, as I mentioned there, which they have a program right now that as long as someone's homeless, they can help get them into a temporary housing.
And I know the city has said this process is expected to take months, weeks. It's not an overnight thing. What is your top priority during this whole process?
Well, it absolutely has to be fire prevention, fire safety. We have to protect our neighbors along the Greenway. And we picked an area this time for these first 7, which happens to be kind of around the Railroad Park area and where there's a senior living mobile home park. And it would be really tragic if there was any fire down there, because a lot of those folks are becoming more and more immobile. So that is our #1 priority. We don't want to see what we had last year with the Alameda fire. Obviously, we saw how quickly that spread, and there is a lot of vegetation, and it is turning out to be a dry season already.
Chief, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Medford Police Chief Scott Clauson. We're talking about this new prohibited camping law going into effect this week here in Medford. Chief, I know the city's been working on this for some time, but there were 2 homicides. You were talking about near a homeless campground near I believe the Railroad Park. 2 homicides right there just in the last couple of months. How much did that play into your excitement, if that's the right word, toward creating this law?
Well, you're correct. That area did have 2 homicides very within close proximity. And really that speaks to the health and safety of the entire Greenway. I just mentioned the fire danger I feel for the citizens, but I also feel that there was many unsafe situations, and the Greenway had become unsafe for many of the campers. It's an area that we don't just typically patrol, in the middle of the night. There's very little lighting. The paths are very narrow, so it's not an area that we can just really get down and patrol. So I think it goes both ways. We know that the homeless are being victimized. We hear about it. Sometimes they make reports, sometimes they don't. So it just kind of speaks to how we need to also protect those who are vulnerable.
Chief, can you estimate how many people live on the Greenway in Medford? You can narrow it to those 7 camps you guys have obviously been talking about, but do you have an estimate for us? Is it dozens, 100?
We estimate that there's about 150 tents along the Greenway. As far as occupants, though, we think there's about 100. If you drive along I-5, you can see probably that 150. But many of those are just garbage. They have been abandoned. So in the next coming weeks, we'll not only be moving folks into shelters, but we'll be cleaning up those tents that have been abandoned.
I know the urban campground is expanding. There's the Kelly Shelter, Hearts with a Mission, the Medford Gospel Mission. There are facilities, but they don't, I assume, have enough room to take in 150 people. Where are these folks supposed to go?
Right, and you're exactly right. That's one of the reasons that we're starting small. We're going to work with this 7 and do really intensive outreach. I do think that once the urban campground doubles, that we will have sufficient space. I mean, the bottom line is people don't want to accept services. They don't want to be in an organized setting. They want to go do their own thing. And so I think those people will leave the area. We estimate there's probably 30% that come from Portland and Eugene and definitely from California. So those folks, once they realize that they can't just camp out on their own, I see those folks leaving.
A lot of people aren't fans of this new law that the city of Medford created. The city, I believe, has said there's some misinformation. I'm not sure that's come from your agency, but from the city at large, from the community surrounding this law. What's your take on that? Do you see any of that?
Well, I do see misinformation. I hear the $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail, or 6 months in jail if they violate the ordinance, and that's clearly not the case. We don't have jail space, nor would we want to put people in jail for that long for this type of offense. So as far as fines go and jail service, that'll be up to a judge to determine that. So yeah, and the reality is that the laws in effect in those areas due to fire danger. Folks still have the opportunity to lay down a bedroll and sleep in a place of their choosing, as long as they're not on a business property or private property. They still have that option.
Chief, thank you so much. I know it's good to get you here this week as all this is happening right now this week, but also to break this down for us and go in detail. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.